Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we talk about the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. It's our pleasure this afternoon to be coming into your homes and to be talking about the goodness of the Lord. Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we examine life issues, whether they be social, economical, political, or spiritual. If they are your concerns, there are concerns as well. So, welcome this afternoon to another exciting discussion. I'm sure you will learn so much from this experience this afternoon as we discuss with one of my long associates, Dr. Viviene Kerr, a person who has offered so much to the Jamaican society. I always talk about my unsung heroes, and she is here with us today. And I want to say once again, congratulations to her. Just before she tells us a little bit about herself, I want to announce that she's the first female president of the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, my alma mater.
Definitely.
So welcome again, Dr. Carr.
Thank
It's so
you very
good to have
much.
you. I was at your book launch, and it was such a pleasure just to see, someone that actually just elevate to another dimension. So congratulations once again, and I
Thank
know that
you.
this book will really be transformed, add to the transformation that we're talking about with our young people. So before we go any further, Dr. Carr, just tell us a little bit about who is Dr. Carr.
Okay, so Vivienne, as my parents named me, I'm from the parish of Westmoreland. And my father had many children. Typical Jamaican situation. My mother had about seven of us. Six
Seven.
were from my father.
Okay.
So I'm from, I think, a very large family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm towards the end. So I'm the second to last one of my father have approximately 20 something children.
Okay, so that's what you meant by large.
Yes. But we had the village concept. I lived actually in Delftland, which is a real village. Almost everybody knows everybody. And then after passing my common entrance those days, yes, I went to live in South with my aunt. So
Okay.
I've gone to Mannings. I tell people I'm a very proud Mannings old girl.
Right.
And I
Shout
have,
out to Mannings.
Yeah, exactly. And so, having gone through that institution, which I believe laid the foundation, I was able to just move after that to UAE. And so, as I said, the rest is history. You entered various spaces after that. So, that's me. I got married. That didn't work out the way I anticipated, but I have two children. Yeah, so I give thanks.
A boy and a girl.
A boy, and
you
so
were
I'm
just
like, I'm perfectly fine. I don't
you
need
were
any
just telling us
more.
about your son who is now at aviation school as well, and your
Sure.
daughter who just completed her CSEC.
Yeah, we went through the CSEC journey of the pandemic, and so that was an interesting. Yeah.
That's a nice segue to our discussion because you said we.
Oh yeah, we. It's a we thing. Yeah,
We went, and that is so true because no, one of the things that I'm learning as a parent myself is that when it comes to parenting, we have to understand it's a we concept, right? We're not just deliverers of babies. We don't just give birth to children, but it's a journey that we actually take with our kids, and we never really leave them, to be honest, until we are comfortable enough. I mean, I tell people every time that, I have to pass my mom's house to come from church.
Okay.
And as adults, as I'm supposed to be, there is just something about stopping by your mom and just being it's almost like
It makes a difference. Yeah, you feel secure, safe. This is somebody who knows you. You can be yourself with.
I mean, the real motive is the food,
Oh yeah, right. It's good home cooked meal.
There is no meal. There is no
days.
meal like a mom's meal. But so one of the things is that we want to get into the book from very early because a lot of interesting concepts. So this is your second book.
No, the first.
The first,
I
right?
have written a number of articles leading up with the title.
Articles,
so
right,
the title, therefore, would be familiar. It still takes a village. However, it is the first book I've done some articles on other topics because, as you know,
that's a constantly
my
writing.
background is also in librarianship. So my very first article when I became an official author was within the field of librarianship.
Okay, excellent. So I saw this book, and what caught me was that I heard of the title, but then as I got the book itself, it says it still takes a village to raise a child, and it says help for parents in dealing with academic underperformance. So we're going to get to that first, but explain this concept to me. So the fact that we say it stills, it is implying that we used to do it.
Yes.
So talk to us
So it
about
is
that.
actually an African concept. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as you know, many of us from in Jamaica, we are of African origin.
Right.
And so we tend to refer a lot to our past and that which we learned or used to do and which we maybe
Mm-hmm.
need to look back at. So when we recognize that there were a number of challenges and we also knew that no one person could do it,
Mm-hmm.
the whole concept of the village was revived. Yes, it's still going to take the village. We know, and this especially within parenting, a parent can't raise his or her child alone.
Mm-hmm.
I say to the persons at my church, when you see them doing anything wrong, please speak to them. If you don't, the Lord is going to hold you accountable.
Exactly.
Because I can't always be there. We all
Exactly.
can't be there. And so I believe in the concept always have of the village, just raising the child. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I've practiced. When the pandemic came and the persons were talking about who needed to do what, I remember that it really still takes a village. And so that's where the title came. We did a series of articles based on some presentations
Okay.
and we used that. And so when the book was being completed, as a matter of fact, I had to fast track the book when I recognized that there would be the learning gap. The academic underperformance, the same thing as learning gaps.
Right.
And so the concept of it's still going to take the village. So that's how it came out.
Excellent. And I know that when you thought about writing, you had some struggles, just like most writers, where you said, do I? It's too such a task to write and so on. But you pursued that dream and to make sure that the content and the knowledge that you had inside will be passed on to a generation. We find that in our Jamaican society, sometimes we can be, I mean, like you say, it's still, we know that in days gone by, once a person gave birth to a child, it was like our child.
Exactly.
It was
And
like,
again, remember, as in a rural community, so when you did anything wrong, they would tell my father.
let me tell you,
And so you have to be
and
very
what was
careful.
also very important, what was also very significant is that a person on the road could reprimand
That's
you,
it.
and
That's
then
it.
when you got home,
You
and
dare not tell anybody you get beat number two.
you better make sure that you're satisfied with that one whooping, because when you got home, then chances are, when if the person who you had the encounter with, they would relate the story to your parent, you would get another
Oh,
whooping.
yes.
But so what we find is that that kind of change in perspective, where in a way we have become we have gotten into our own little silos, right?
Yeah.
And so
Urbanization has caused.
urbanization has, it is good like most things, but it
Yeah.
has its it
That
has its
negative side to
negative
it.
side to it.
Definitely.
And so what we find now is that everybody has become kind of almost in their own space. Explain to us that what are some of the impacts of just that kind of segmentation of my family and I, your family, and so on. What are some of the impacts of that?
The impacts are significant because
Mm-hmm.
you'll have persons living beside you who may be in trouble with the law and you never know
Right.
because all you're doing is minding your own business, as
Mm-hmm,
they would
mm-hmm,
say. And so the whole culture and the atmosphere for crime and violence
mm-hmm,
actually is very prevalent.
mm-hmm.
It's easy for that to happen. You have families, persons being abused in their families. They don't necessarily know their neighbors. They can't reach out for help. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like in the country where they run to somebody's house for help and so that has the impact of persons suffering in silence.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Which
the
is a big
impact
issue in Jamaica, where
definitely,
we say see no evil, do no evil,
and the inform of the dead.
and inform of the
That's the
dead. And
culture
we are
of the
very
urban area, by the
aware,
way.
right? And we're very aware that people are hurting inside, because I know that you counsel as well. And there are many times when we have these counseling experiences, when we talk to persons and they will say, who knew? How, and when you get an appreciation of the environment, you recognize that there was a lady
They
who was a
could
tenant
have
next door,
spoken to.
and there was somebody next door. So what we're saying to our viewers is, we have to respect each other's space, but there are some truths we can't deny. Back in the days when everybody saw a child as their child and their
They
responsibility,
cared more.
they cared more. And I do think that the lack of care and love and respect in our society is part of what is fostering this degeneration in our
Definitely.
society,
Definitely.
where people say, you just do as you like, you say as you like, and you don't care.
And a lot of disrespect therefore is bred because again, as we spoke about the in days gone by, you respected persons who you didn't even know. It was shocking to me when I came to live in Kingston, the corporate area. You pass and you say hello and the person doesn't answer. Are you like, what, you said hello?
Dr. Carr, I'm smiling
It's
because
strange.
guess what happened? I think even though I wasn't, well, I wasn't really raised in the country, right? I think our parenting would have instilled some of those values in us.
Exactly.
And one, as you rightfully said, one of the things I find, I laugh at myself a whole lot about it is that I see somebody coming, right? And because it is so customary
Within you.
for us to say hi, I would call to this person, the person looking at me strange
Like, yeah,
because
who are you?
they know that, who are you? I don't know you. But you see, that old construct, I think the society has become too segmented where
That's true.
my business is my business and your business is your business and my child is my
Yeah.
child. And what happens is that even when I see a child in a compromising position or and doing something,
Exactly.
we just say no, let me leave them because a
You
parent
can
might come and
also
say
be told off. Even
exactly
teachers
who
at school who will reprimand, the parents go there to beat them off, and I'm like, that never happened in my days.
it's really something that I think that we really have to look back at. I mean, we have to start somewhere. How
Definitely.
do we address these issues where I mean a child feel that okay, once I'm outside of my home, then my authority figure is absent. You see, what we knew is that even when we were outside of our space, and even if we didn't know the person,
We were
once
being
we were
monitored.
in a space, there was always somebody who is in authority. And I think
Yes.
that disregard for authority now is where children just behave as if listen, me run things and
And
things
I can
don't
do whatever I want. And if you tell my parents will tell you off.
right.
So a lot of persons, they, as you say, would not mind their own business because they also do not want to be told off by a parent who said it's none of your business. Because actually, some parents do that. And so when we work, as you know, I'm involved in the PTAs. When we work with parents, we're saying to them, no, you can't always be there. And when a parent speaks to your child because they want what's best for your child, of course, we give the guidance. Make sure that you're not being unkind because some people are really unkind to the
Mm-hmm.
children or disrespecting them
Because there
because
must there
then
will still be boundaries. There
that's
will
it.
still be
Exactly,
boundaries. There will
exactly,
still be do's and don'ts.
exactly.
We're not saying abuse. We're not saying
Oh no.
mutilate. We're not saying do something where the child is no, is left
It's going to be embarrassed
embarrassed
or,
or so on.
that kind
But
of thing.
what is important is that children must understand that there are boundaries and that there are lines of demarcation.
Yeah, and
A
appropriate
teacher, an appropriate
behaviors.
behavior. This is teacher and she is the authority figure. This is the neighbor and she's an authority figure. And that's Miss Jones. She's an authority figure. And I feel somehow that we have become too accommodating
Yeah.
in this new dispensation. We have become too accommodating. Children have a voice too, and yes, they do. But you see, we have to manage that delicate balance.
Exactly. Because with freedom comes responsibility. You're free to speak, but it also means you have to be responsible and respectful. So
Mm-hmm.
I smile just now because my daughter would always cringe whenever I'm on the road with her and I might see someone, they just have to be in the uniform that she used to wear. I'm going to stop if they're doing wrong. I say, Mommy, I'm like, no, I'm a parent, and if you're doing wrong, I expect another parent to correct you. So I
Exactly.
am going to deal with it.
And what is important, Dr. Carr, is that if students in general, young adults or children in general, if we had a culture that says to us, listen, I could be 10 miles away from home.
My
Somebody
child will be safe.
I can be reprimanded. If we had that if we continue to embrace that. But like I said, as a society, we have become more accommodating, and children get up and they say, "Yes, I have rights, the right to talk," and I'm not saying that is not true, but there is time and place, and context is very, very important. Dr. Carr, how do you feel? I mean, let us want to examine some of the issues that are raised in the book because as you talk about, we move to academic
Underperformance.
underperformance, and you talk about it takes a village to raise a child. A lot of persons, when I think about it, sometimes I say you will have a child and his or her parent might not be able to assist them academically,
Definitely.
so they might underperform,
Mhm.
right? However, if we continue to embrace this concept, which is what some persons also do now, it's not
Group
absent.
work and that kind of
Exactly.
thing.
So that has its mutual benefit now because mom, as it is, it might not be able to provide that kind
But
of
someone
guidance and
else
so on.
can.
But because we see the community
Definitely.
as
Getting
part of
involved.
the rearing and nurturing of the child, then that child doesn't have to worry
That's
because
it.
I can send her around to Miss Jones, who also sees her as a part of the community.
That's it. So we've been calling on the community, a lot because what we found And again, if we look back at the whole thing of child abuse, we found that the community was neglectful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a child being abused, and many times they're aware. If you take, for example, neglect, the
Mm-hmm.
parent has gone to work and the child comes from school and is the latchkey children,
Mm-hmm.
letting themselves in from school. And so some, young man noticing this pattern after a while decides to break in and rape the girl, which
Mm-hmm.
happens too often. And so for us, we're saying the community has to be aware,
Mm-hmm.
has to report,
Mm-hmm.
because the CDA, as you know,
Yes, has made it a
renamed, yeah,
law.
they've now said that if it is you're aware, you need to report.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started there, but we're also saying if it is a parent has need, the parent need to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tutoring that you made mention of, that becomes important. With COVID, we saw a lot of lessons learned. Churches getting involved, younger children,
I think that was such a
helping
it
and
was
setting
such
up
a
makeshift spaces.
it was such a
Yeah,
joy. I'm telling you,
it
I
was.
was so blessed when I actually saw churches reaching out and
Mhm.
say, hey, listen, we are a church here. We have this Wi-Fi. We have a building. We're saying to students,
Mhm.
come out. Don't stay home if you
Yes.
don't have any Wi-Fi. And that was such a positive step.
Let me tell you something. When the pandemic started, and I heard, because three of us colleagues got together, and that's how the three articles in the series started. So we had the presentation, the panel discussion on air, Zoom,
Hmm.
and then we felt no, the rest of Jamaica needed to know. So we did the article. So we look at it from the library's perspective. Well,
Hmm.
I did the parents' perspective, the library's perspective, and the church's perspective. So
Hmm.
we're saying no, those three institutions needed to work. They are part of the community. If you have no Wi-Fi, the government has fitted the libraries with Wi-Fi. If you
Exactly.
have no laptop, you go there and you use the computers. Or
Hmm.
they also have laptop now and tablets.
Right.
And so we kept saying, no, resources are available. The village has, as the Governor General will say, there's nothing wrong with Jamaica that cannot be fixed with what's right with Jamaica.
Hmm.
So the village has the resources. And so we felt that the village needed to bring that together. We were saying children are members of churches too.
Exactly.
They have a need. It's time for the church to minister to them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we were out there saying you need to put something in place. And we kept saying it, put something in place. So it
That's
was
so
really good.
amazing. I know that for my own church as well. We try to make the facilities available, basically opening them up. And so we not only address like some of the academic needs, but we also address some of the needs in terms of food and stuff like
Definitely.
that.
Oh yeah.
We did. I think it more than ever
Mhm.
in COVID,
Mhm.
we actually did more outreach in COVID.
Than before. Exactly, because then we know some persons lost their jobs because of the
Exactly.
pandemic, businesses closing, etc. And so some families were hungry.
Hmm.
Because we were involved in the PTA, we're doing care packages, and we've had, and I mean, this was really hard when a parent would tell you 2 days they had not eaten.
Hmm.
And so they were so overjoyed when they got small packages, but it made a difference. And so,
I
yes,
recall,
we
Dr.
did.
Carr, when at one time they said that, when the whole concept of the homeschool started, and the children were supposed to be being, utilized online. And I remember they're saying that children should be at home during the
Mhm.
time when it was school time.
Yes.
And I was like, who is going to police that, But then I see again where the community would have played a very important role, because if a parent had to be, for whatever reason, gone to work, trying to make two ends meet, and the neighbor gave an eye on the child who was at home, that child knows, listen, don't even think about it today,
Exactly.
because
They need
Miss
to stay
Jones
in.
is gonna report to mommy that, as
Exactly.
far as she knew, you went to the river, you went there,
Mhm.
and we saw a lot of the incidents as
Yeah,
well,
the
where
children
some of the
went.
young kids lost their lives because they went for a swim and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
disobedience. Yes.
Another thing that I want to look at is how the whole thing you talk about underperformance. And one of the things that I found so interesting when I listened to the narrative, and you're expounding on it, where we spoke about underperformance, we usually think that, oh, because a child
They're
getting
failing
20,
and
30, that means they're underperforming. So
mhm.
enlighten our viewers this afternoon on this whole concept of what exactly does underperformance
Okay,
mean.
so underperformance is simply where the child is performing below their abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it is an A student who is getting B's or B pluses, the child is underperforming because they have the ability to do more, to do
Mm-hmm.
better. It could also be that child who's getting the C's or the F's and the D's. And that child definitely we know there's a challenge and it's not necessarily academic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're saying they're different, underperformance will present itself in different ways.
Correct.
And so I have within the book a checklist.
Okay.
You go through the at least 10. How do you know if your child is underperforming? That's here, right? And so what we're saying is do the check And if you're finding that your child is actually underperforming, then have it fixed.
Hmm.
And I brought that up because we know that one of the other interesting things that gifted children underperform too.
Exactly, because we might just say they're doing well, but they can do great. They
That's
can
it.
do great. And
That's
the thing
it.
is that how do we create that environment now so they are bloom, but how can we get them to truly come to life?
So it's about the Vision 2030.
Right.
Jamaicans being able to reach their maximum or their fullest potential. That's
Right,
what
right,
Goal One
right.
says. Our aim is to ensure that we're the best in the
At what
world,
we
not
do.
just athletics,
At no, just
but
at
our
everything that we
music.
do.
But yes, academically, we need to be.
Right.
We need to be right
So
there because we have the ability.
I think it's very important for every parent to get this book because yeah, your child might be getting a B and you say, boy, he's trying his best because he's getting a B. But the truth be told, if you get a chance to really interact with the content and the skills that are necessary, you would recognize that he could probably reach up to his A potential. Talk to us a
Definitely.
bit about some of the steps that we could probably, how could we, some of the things that we could probably do. I know we have to get the book, but some of
Sure.
the things that we could actually be looking out for that says to us, listen, this is not his optimum.
Okay. All right. So within that checklist, you'll find that the teacher, for example, will say to you on this. So we speak about grade reports.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the grade reports, and if you're seeing the teacher saying can do better, is not doing his best,
Mm-hmm.
is not completing homework, so
Mm-hmm.
all of those are clues. Because with academic underperformance is also academic underachievement,
Correct.
meaning that the achievement on the grade report will be lower than it ought to have been.
Right.
The C's or the B's as against the A's.
Well, that's
Yes?
okay. I'm thinking here that maybe if you had discovered this a long time, I'd probably be a genius.
Well, actually, I said to a person, and it's interesting what Christendom and Christ does to you. I entered UWI and the University of the West Indies, and I tell people, as above average, I I matriculated, which meant that I got my CSEC and I also got my CAPE, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I would not be getting C's. I'm getting B's and B pluses.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got saved and I started getting A's, and I'm like, something good with the Christian thing. And so for me, I recognized I had it within me,
Right.
but didn't pay enough attention. So that motivated me when I started getting A's. And I also went through that journey myself, being a parent, where I'm seeing, no man, I know this child can do better.
Right.
So yes, he or she wasn't getting B's or, C's or D's.
Mm-hmm.
My children wouldn't fail because they know I don't stand for that, right?
Right.
However, I knew they could get A's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pushed them because I knew that that was possible. So
Right.
we're saying, yes, check the grades. Check what the teachers are saying. Your knowledge of your child should tell you whether or not they have the ability. Because some children are really just C's.
Mm-hmm.
C's. And that's their best.
Right.
And I've always said, if that's your best, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not your best, I'm not good.
Right, right, right.
So we're looking at grades, we're
And
looking at
so
what
it is
teachers are
important for us
saying.
to identify
Mhm.
abilities. I'm hearing you saying that parents out there, you have to interact with the teachers.
That's it.
Gone are the days, when parents think that teacher alone can do it. It is a community.
It is a partnership.
Right.
So they will talk about, if I may, they will talk about the home, the school, and the child.
Mm-hmm.
The parent has to the child has a part to play,
Right.
the school has a part to play, and home has a part to play. So you see, in the book again, I talk about the whole thing of homes. How it is that the home supports the child in terms of making the environment conducive to study
Exactly.
and making sure all the resources that are needed are available so we don't have the bling bling and all the latest
Prioritizing.
rather than the books,
Right,
the
right, right.
textbooks, and the textbooks, the laptops, the tablets, which cost a bit more than the phones. But
Mm-hmm.
we said to them early when the government announced, because we are part of the PTA, when the government announced homeschool, we said school will open in September. That's when we started that thing in 2020,
Right.
September. School will resume in September, except that it's going to be at home. So we looked at homeschooling. And we're
Okay.
teaching parents how to homeschool their
Right.
children.
And I think, what parents, and I mean, it was a new experience for a lot of parents, but I think what is important, as you said just now, is a sharing of
That's
information.
it.
So creating an habitat, creating an environment for learning is critical to learning.
Definitely.
Because sometimes you might pressure your child and say, you're not learning anything, but have you created an environment for learning? So you are downstairs, you're probably on your phone too as well, but because you're saying you're a parent, probably talking loudly with the neighbor, but you have to structure it in such a way. And we don't know what will happen. No, the pandemic is kind of going down and we see places opening up. But even without the pandemic, we need to create an atmosphere in our homes. Even when you tell them to read, sometimes you can turn on the TV as well
Thank you.
and
That's why I
read
said
with
we
them.
went through the pandemic
Exactly, read with
studies.
them, and
Yes.
even if it's not that you're actually reading their school work, but you're
But
actually showing them that reading is a good, healthy habit.
thank you very
Pick it
much.
up.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to be an
And
excellent
helping
reader.
them when it's time for exams, it means, okay, let me quiz you. Tell me what you learned.
Right.
And it may not be that you know, but if they're talking and it doesn't make sense, I'm sure you'll know.
Listen,
You
I
know.
tell you, I tell this story all the time, Dr. Carr, as we're wrapping up, about my mom, who I came home, and my dad. They would ask us some questions, and it was just about making sure that we were alert enough to
And you didn't
respond.
waste time at
And
school.
we didn't waste time at school. I'm sure some of the answers were not correct. They probably didn't know. But what that said to you as a child, like, listen. And what my father used to do, and I said this to parents as well, even if they didn't know what the content that you were learning about, they would look at the date. Did you take notes? Some
So
parents have kids.
monitoring, looking at the books to see
Monitoring is
what's done,
critical.
what's not done. And you
Exactly.
mentioned the steps, and I just want to very quickly go through those. So we're saying, number one, we recognize our children are different and there's something called a learning style.
Hmm.
How does the child learn? Is it by seeing things, they are very visual? Is it by hearing? So as you say, they hear that and they know
Auditory.
it. Or is it kinesthetic? They have to do something, the writing or, even rocking the chair.
Hmm.
You'll be amazed how it is that they keep the brain working. So we look at the learning style and we are saying look at the profile of how the child learns best. One. Then we are also saying look at the grade reports. What are the grade reports saying? If the child is not doing well, take the child for a professional assessment.
Assessment, right?
So the psychoeducational assessment, which are done by counselors, psychologists, we promote that because again we're looking at the village.
Hmm.
And we're also saying get that assessment done. If it is that the child therefore needs support, you have a big sister or big brother assisting, they're not doing so well, something might be wrong cognitively.
Hmm.
So get a psychometric assessment done.
Right.
And that's critical microcare, and there are many other institutions that do that. That all of those together will give you a diagnosis. What is the problem? Fix that. Once you fix that, then we now look at how do we work on it together, the village working together.
Hmm.
The parent, the teacher, the guidance counselor, social workers, which
Right, right,
government should
right.
have had in
For
place,
interventions.
getting the social support services that are there in the country activated. So if you have, for example, a subsidy to get laptops, then the parent will be told about that. So
Right.
they're aware of the services available to help that child. That's what we're saying. The village, it still takes a village.
But I do agree with you. We're going to have another part to this discussion. It still takes a village to raise a child, right? And it embraces the concept that no man is an island.
Thank you.
No man is alone. Even if I'm a doctor, my child might need some help in some physics or something else. And and when we talk about the community as well, we're seeing resource persons.
That's it.
I mean, and persons will have different kinds of skills because you might need somebody to brush up on their social skills. Again, understand your child's learning style. And what you mentioned microcare. I mean, tell us about some of the other resources
Yeah,
that
so
we have
there are several
available.
other assessment centers nationally. So there's Microcare, which is in Kingston.
Hmm.
There's also Churches Teachers College, which is in Mandeville.
Hmm.
And we have Samshire in Montego Bay.
Bay, right.
And a few other assessment. There's also private facilities available. So if it is that you're able to afford it, it's very expensive if you go private, but it is possible for us to be able to get the access to the services.
And even at CGST, I know that is a very excellent
Yeah,
counseling
the
center.
Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, yes, TGST, we have the president. We have a counseling center, and so we do the psychoeducational assessments.
Right.
Yes,
So
not the
and
psychometrics.
so
Just
you
the
can probably sometimes you have to
psychoeducational.
start there,
Definitely.
and based on the training of the counselors, they can redirect you if there's
Definitely.
additional.
And sometimes it's not a matter of redirecting, but also pulling that knowledge which they have and adding it to the psychometrics, which will tell
Right.
you academically this is the problem.
So
So
help
putting
is here.
everything together.
Help the community.
Definitely.
Well, we want to say thank you so very much for joining this afternoon. I know that this was a very important discussion, but just coming on the heels of what we see happening in our schools, we just had two major incidents that went viral. That isn't the kind of Jamaica that we want represented, the legacy that we want for the tomorrow. So we want to say to everybody who is watching Sip and Chat, you might have done your own parenting, your child is out of school, but there are still more children that you can, add value to their life. Remember, it's a journey. We want to say thank you so very much to all our viewers out there. And until next time, let us continue to sip and chat.